Hey guys, my name is Tetos and in this video I'm going to tell you how to play Lee Sin like a Rush. Before we start off with the usual procedure, I'd like to mention that this is a very condensed guide and I could never ever fit a complete jungle guide into 15 minutes, so I hope you can still learn a lot while watching, and let's dive right into it, but also note that there is, as always, time codes in the description for each chapter. Always pick Smite and Flash, because of course Smite is essential on any jungler, and Lee Sin loves going Flash because he can do so many combos with this whole kit. Rush only uses one rune page on Lee Sin and it's this one. It's nothing special except for the armor penetration, and he uses 5 armor penetration in total because the lowest amount of armor any jungle creep or monster has is the small raptor. It has 5 armor, so AD casters benefit nicely from armor penetration when ganking, but also in this case when jungling. There are 2 mastery pages Rush uses on Lee Sin, but both are 21.9 and 0. The first one is a standard page, it just has the standard offense mastery and reduced monster damage in the defense tree, so usually take this one, except when you're invading, when you plan to invade, you get the second one, which has the recovery mastery, the HP 5 mastery, instead of the reduced minion damage. Knowing which spell to max on Lee Sin can be quite difficult and depends on the game usually, but definitely on level 1, always go Q, it's the best level 1 spell for any scenario. Then for level 2 you pick W when you just clear your jungle, but you pick E when you're invading. On level 3 you go E if of course you've picked W, and W if you picked E at level 2. So that's how the level 1, 2, 3 goes, and then afterwards how you max your skills also depends on the game, but usually you should go R, Q, E, W. Of course, if you think you need more sustain, you can put a couple of points in W, but usually he goes R, Q, E, W, and the thing is, neither E nor W have a reduced cooldown when, of course, maxing them, so if you put points into them you just get more lifesteal, spell vamp, or more damage and a better slow. So if you gank more, then the E should be better, but if, for example, you're maybe dueling more, then maybe the W is better, but of course that always depends on the game, and you should think about this yourself. When playing Lee Sin, you always start off with the machete, 2 health potions and a warding totem. You always rush the Stalker's Blade with the warrior enchant into boots, and if you're snowballing you get the Sightstone and the lance trinket, otherwise the last whisper and some wards now and then. In order to transition to tank, mid and late game, you get the tank items displayed here depending on the enemy team composition as always, so armor against AD and MR against AP of course. Same goes for the boot choices, you get the Ninja Talba against very strong AD teams, the Merc threats against CC and very strong AP teams, and the mobility boots if you're trying to snowball very heavily. Pink wards and the Oracle Lens are important as well, of course, to set up for plays and objectives in the mid and late game, and the Seek's Herald can be picked up if your own team has at least 2 to 3 auto attack reliant champions, so for example a strong AD carry and an Irelia or a Jax in the top lane. For the boots and chance, of course, home guards when deathing, alacrity sometimes when running mobility boots if necessary, and for the elixirs you have 3 choices, so the Wrath if you need more damage, if you want to assassinate everybody. If you're trying to siege and your comp isn't really good at sieging, you get the Elixir of Ruin, and you get the Elixir of Iron if the enemy team still has lots of CC, or if you're the main tank of your team and try to lead your team with the passive of the Elixir. I could never fit a complete game plan for Lee Sin jungle on this little sheet, but the first point is very important, actually the most important one. Be flexible and adapt to your allies and enemies. This means that whatever you do, don't just follow a strict routine, don't follow a strict jungle route, adapt and try to make the most of your strong early game, because if it goes too late, you're weaker than a lot of other junglers, for example Sejuani or Nautilus. Junglers like these are very strong and offer a lot more than you as Lee Sin to the team. The next 3 points are just about a very strong early game, which you should abuse to invade, gank heavily, prioritize kills over farm, and abuse your mobility to try and snowball every lane if possible, so you can really finish the game early. Denying vision on Lee Sin is very important. Usually Rush picks up a couple of pink wards every game to assert dominance. This also helps to scare the enemy laners, which in turn helps your own laners, your allies, to play better and press their advantage more easily. If you can snowball, you should transition to a tank and aura bot in the late game, which is also why Rush picks up items such as Locket or Seek's Herald, and try to catch out people who are alone with the insect maneuver, for example, or rather peel for your carries in the late game than going in and trying to assassinate somebody. Lee Sin is a combo champion, so he has a lot of combos and I'm only mentioning a couple of them here. First off, we have the ward jump, where you simply put down a ward or a sidestone charge and then W to it. This lets you travel over walls very quickly and lets you be the mobile champion we all know. Next up we have the kick flash or flash kick. Basically you cast the ultimate and then flash to either change the direction or in this case get out of the trouble. But no, you can also just, if you are not good at this game, simply use a flash kick, which is way easier, but of course this means your enemies have more time to react. Next up, the all-in combo is a simple Q, auto attack, E, which is skipped in this case, R and Q once again, because the second part of Q actually has an execute part to it, so it deals more damage when the enemy has less HP, so that's why you would usually try to burst him down with all your spells and then use the second charge of your Q, or the second part of your Q for the execute. Next up we have the Q Smite Q combo, which allows you to kill a creep that is blocking your line of sight to cast a Q on a target, in this case Tristana. This allows for some very surprising ganks, assassination attempts and dives, but it's also not that easy, you should definitely practice it. Finally, the famous insect combo. It goes like this: Q, Q, sidestone or ward, W and R, and it's actually pretty hard to pull off if you have a high ping especially, but with low ping you should do a couple of practice rounds, especially if you're new to Lee Sin, before you even try this out in a normal game. You can also combine this with a flash kick if you want to be faster, or you can just choose a different target to kick. While the laners usually have the same early game all the time, the jungler can choose between many jungle routes, ganking paths, etc. So for example on the red side, a standard start would be the Gromp start, of course with the bot lane help. Then Rush likes to go for another small camp before getting his red buff. He hits level 3 by doing so and can either gank mid or top lane. So you could also just simply decide to keep on jungling and farming if there isn't any gankable lane right now. On the blue side you will find the Crux, of course, as your standard start most of the time. Again, bottom lane can help you by doing that faster to get a quick level 2, and after that Rush likes to get red buff and then Rush level 3. But after that, you know, some people just keep on farming, but he usually goes for a bottom lane gank if possible, or a mid lane gank even, because red buff of course is very powerful, and Lee Sin level 3 is where his first big power spike is, where he gets his full kit without the ultimate, so that's what you can do. Other than that, you can also prepare for invades. If you want to do that, you should put down a warding totem, the charge of course, around 120, 130, so you know when the enemy is around red buff. So you will start your route as normally with the Gromp, but then you just go to the other jungler and try to find him. Of course, in this case you would pick E at level 2 and not W for better trading and the slow and more damage. But in this case, for example, you have to be very careful as well, because alone he would probably die 1v2, but the mid laner helped him there. For ganking, bottom lane, mid lane and top lane are all very gankable lanes on Lee Sin. You can be very mobile and look for the best ganking route possible. For the Q, you should also of course wait for, if possible, the allied laners to cast their CC and then get an easy Q off, because a missed Q can really cost you the gank and sometimes even more. So you can see that top lane is also pretty easily gankable and is very easy to snowball, but you have to be very careful because every jungler likes to gank top lane, and this usually leads to some 2v2s and sometimes double buff transfers, which are not what you want if you're the one who's dying. Counter jungling of course also essential on Lee Sin, as well as dueling in the jungle, because you are a pretty strong duelist early to mid before you fall off. So against this Gragas, even though you don't have your ultimate, or he doesn't have his ultimate, he could turn the fight around and get the kill, even though I think, yeah, Lee Sin was definitely lower health. For the last tip in the laning phase, you should try to soak up XP and gold where possible, as in this case. Lee Sin loves to teamfight in a messy way, as you can see in this clip for example. Assassination is possible in the early mid game, but in the very late game it's probably not a smart idea, especially with Rush's build. But in this case, for example, you can see the assassination at first and then the kick to kind of headbutt, in a way, cannon out of the fight. And of course you can also either peel, go all in, you can cast your slow to peel a bit more, you can shield your allies. For example, in this clip the AD carry got caught even before the fight started, but even though they start 4v5, a very strong kick and the Quishes are dead as well. A miss Q here on cannon will tell you exactly how the fight goes on, because miss Qs are always a bad thing. He gets the kill here, but after that Rush sadly dies as well, so it just shows how reliant you are on your Q hitting. A key factor when playing Lee Sin is to be flexible and adapt to the current situation at all times. So in this case you can see that the enemy Jarvan isn't in his jungle, the blue is still up, he goes for an invade, but when he starts the Gromp he notices that the enemy cannon leaves his lane, and that is why he's backing off here. So you can see one prime example basically how you can adapt your jungle route. For the passive you should know that it's important to use it efficiently. So basically what you're seeing here is that after every spell cast before the second W, for example, you're trying to put out 2 auto attacks to get the energy back and the attack speed, of course. This is essential when playing in the early game especially. For clearing the camps you can follow a general rule of thumb that doesn't apply for red and blue buff, but for the small camps, for example raptors, wolves and golems, you should go for the small monsters first if you don't have smite up, but if you have smite up and you can nuke the large monster, so to speak, you should do that and then go for the small ones to reduce the damage taken while jungling. I've already talked about it, but missing Qs, as you can see here, can be deadly, not for yourself only, but also for your allies. You can see here the Riven only gets the kill on Nautilus here because of the missed Q at the start, which was a quite risky Q. Maybe it was a prediction, but it simply didn't pay off. A second clip shows a similar scenario where they don't give up a kill for themselves, but they don't get the gank up. So a missed Q here once again just shows you that the missed Qs can really hurt your game and presence. If you want to do it better, then look for lanes that have CC, as in this clip, where Twisted Fate simply goes for the stun card and then the follow-up Q on Lee Sin. Abusing your mobility on Lee Sin is important. For example, in this clip, with an creative ganking path, you can get a very easy kill in the bottom lane especially, but also on other lanes, of course. This works on any lane. When playing Lee Sin, it's important to support your team with your trinket and pink wards in the mid to late game to deny vision, which allows you to set up traps such as this one for Cho'Gath, and it allows him, for example, or allows the team to set up for a potential Baron in this case. Don't forget that you don't have the strongest combat stats if you follow the build I showed you earlier, so even Rush sometimes makes the mistake of going into 1v1 fights that he simply cannot win, for example against this Cassiopeia, which is a 1v1 god. And also don't be a Lee Sin that just goes in and is a victim of Lee Sin syndrome, where he goes in when he shouldn't and dies simply for that. There are tons of combos you can pull off on Lee Sin, and many of them look pretty cool, but some of them are pretty hard to do. So in this clip, for example, there is not only a certain combo, but also a flash prediction, which allows him to survive against the Graves ultimate. But also you can do a lot of combos I haven't shown. So for example, a Q ward WQ allows you to make a kind of triangle jump to dodge certain skill shots. Whereas in this clip, a flash Q combo, which is pretty easy to pull off, but you still have to land the Q, of course. Before we move on to the end screen, I wanted to show you my combo sheet that I sometimes do for some champions. I've also shared this on Twitter and Facebook, so if you want you can go ahead and download that as a little cheat sheet. Congratulations, you've made it until the end screen once again. On the right side, of course, as always, there is a link to the previous Play Like a Pro episode about Easyhoon's Azir, and below that you can find a link to the playlist. So far I've made Wicked's Irelia, Krepos Bard, and Reckless Kalista, of course, as well as Easyhoon's Azir. So I hope you enjoy this series, and thanks for watching as always. Until next time, bye bye.